So this video is about how I was working in the bank at the age of 18, a bank called Halifax Bank. I think it's now called Halifax PLC. It's had quite a lot of mergers and quite a lot of changes over the years, so it will look different. So when I was 18 years old, I had finished another 2 years at college. I went to do some resits at college, and just in case I didn't get through to the university that I wanted to go into, I asked my father permission if I could seek employment. This was quite a bit of a battle actually to do that, and one of the jobs that I saw advertised in the paper was a job for a customer service assistant at Halifax Bank. And I'd applied for this job months and months and months and months ago. I think probably like January time, something like that. And one day out of the blue, got a phone call at home where somebody was asking for me, which was very, very unusual. Normally phone calls are for like my dad. I picked up the phone, answered it, and basically the person at the end of the phone said, you need to come to this particular branch, which was in Meadowhall, in Sheffield Meadowhall. It was a new mall that had been built, and it was a mall that most people started to go and shop in and spend their weekend in. So it was something that most people really knew how to get to, and it was one of those places that was slowly getting more and more business and more trade, and now I think it's even more so now, a place where people go. Anyway, I asked my mum permission if I could go, because at that time really I shouldn't have been out on my own. We were a family that when we would come home, we would stay home unless our dad took us out somewhere or we went somewhere. Even though I think I had passed my driving test at that time, I didn't have a car. My dad and I were sort of sharing his car, or I was driving it with his permission, obviously, when the time came. So my mum, luckily for me, gave me the bus fare, gave me permission to go, because this would be like a lifetime chance for me to go and get this job. And off I went to Meadowhall. Luckily the bus that's on our road took me there. And when I got there, I was still thinking, this is like a dream, this is like a dream. It must be like a prank or something, even though I didn't know what the word prank was back then. But I had gone there, and sure enough, I had a job. There was myself and some other individuals. There was about, I think, 5 or 6 of us, all women, well, all young women, all young ladies, I guess, of like college age, university age. We were all sort of like in our 18 to 20 range, and then there was 2 ladies a little bit older than myself and the other youngsters. So that was quite nice. One thing I spotted straight away though was that I was the only person of colour in that particular branch, and I'm going to come on to why that is important in a minute. When I realised I'd got a job, I had a contract, I'd basically been offered employment, it was quite a shock to me. It was quite a nice surprise to me, because obviously this had been my backup plan should my father agree to it, and he did. When I came home and told them that I'd got a job and I've got a contract, I think everybody in my family was sort of shocked, and more shocked when we were told, like, gradually over the training courses that we received, that I'd have to wear a uniform. I was used to wearing a uniform for school and for work experience, but it was always like a white blouse or a white shalwar kameez and like black trousers. So this was going to be different, because it wasn't anything to do with my culture. It was going to have to be a set uniform that had been chosen for me. And I can remember one of my colleagues, and perhaps they did it without thinking, when they showed me the catalogue, they just said, oh yeah, we do have like an ethnic minority section, there's a sari, just choose the sari. And I was like, I can't have the sari. Why can't you have the sari? That's for people like you, isn't it? I was like, no, sari is for somebody who's Hindu or Sikh. Muslims don't wear that. And it's quite funny if you've watched my other video in regards to items and clothing. Anyway, this particular colleague was slowly integrated, educated from me about the types of things Muslims wear and what we do. And I asked if I could access a scarf, and they didn't know what I meant by that, but I did that with my family. I went and purchased a scarf that would match exactly my outfit, and well, purchased more than one to make sure that it matched my jacket and it matched my outfit, and made sure that I looked part of the style that I was going to do. And I can remember when we did receive our uniform eventually, I chose like a blouse, also trousers, and no, not a blouse, sorry, a long dress, and then the blouse with a long skirt. Uniform changed over the years, if I'm honest, but it was always within modesty, so that my family was happy, and making sure that I obviously supported the types of clothing that my father would agree with and my family would agree with. Working at that bank was quite an eye-opener for me. I was a very, very shy, timid person. I know that sounds hard to believe. I was outspoken, don't get me wrong, and I stood up for my rights, don't get me wrong. Being a Pathan girl, you sort of learn how to stand up for your rights and how to stand up for what you should be doing within your community and within your family. And being the eldest child as well, especially, I had those like core skills of like looking after my siblings and putting them in place from time to time. The initial training for the job was really good, and it took a while to get my dad's permission to let me go on training courses, which was in Leeds. And that was my first time where I caught a train. I'd never been on a train before. I had to go with these ladies from work. It was all quite an eye-opening thing, really, to be fair. The courses were quite interesting, teaching you about basic procedures, banking procedures. And if I'm honest with you, some of it was a big eye-opener. You know, you were observing your colleague at that time. Now, the branch in Meadowhall, the original branch that was there, because it's different now, but the original branch that was there was on like the main street as you were coming into Meadowhall, where there's a big like statue of the steel industry on that side. And it had a very unique system. And if you've watched old-fashioned films, you'll understand what I mean. But it had a tube system. So even though you had like a cashier section at the front and like a desk at the front that was raised at the top, you had your computer screen here, but you had like the tube system. There was two tubes, and I'd never seen this before, but the two tubes that you had were basically to send a red tube down to get money or paperwork or anything, and then the other one would pop up. And kids loved it, adults loved it whenever they came in. We were a cashless system, very cashless system at that point. And that also meant that the side of your desk and the side of your a computer system, you could also leave and obviously lock your computer, make sure it's safe so nobody hacks everything. But you'd go and perhaps if a customer wanted a statement or they wanted something from one of my other colleagues, then you would leave your cashiering desk and you would go and do that. So it was quite an interesting position to be in. You know, you're learning all the computer systems and learning about banking. One of the things I had to learn very, very fast was how to deal with customers and how to deal with people. And one of the main jobs that we had to do was obviously you're dealing with customers' accounts and you're dealing with the queries. Some things you grasped very, very quickly. And when I say customer accounts, I'm talking the good old days where we had a savings account, a savings book, and it's made out of paper. And in those days, I'm sure people still maybe have some of those accounts, but you tended to come into the branch, you would have a little passbook, give it to the cashier, and basically it would update, or it would say interest or tax or anything that's gone in credit-wise, bank credit-wise, you know, if it's people's salaries or pensions or whatever. If they were taking withdrawals, obviously you're checking the signature in the book as well, under like an invisible strip and all this sort of thing. So all these things were quite interesting to see it from the other side of the job. And also learning all the skills I had to very, very quickly learn. Not just about the computer, I was good with the computer anyway. It was the confidence in speaking to customers, because one of the things we were expected to do was performance management. That was a word I'd never heard of until I got into other careers like teaching. And that particular job was where you had to try and get specific targets. So for example, even though I worked part-time, and this was through, a week after I got the job, I found out I was in university for the first time, which was brilliant. And luckily, I was able to get shifts that were like 4 o'clock in the evening until 8 o'clock at night. Or Saturday I would work like full days, Sundays I would work full days. And Sunday, back in those times, it was slowly becoming like a working day. And when it was bank holidays or things like that, it was really nice because we got something called triple pay. I bet some of you don't know what triple pay is, do you? Nice when you can get it. And then it would be double pay or a day off. It varied over the years. But the performance management was quite an interesting thing because I had to quickly learn how to persuade customers to have specific accounts that perhaps they'd not thought of. So for example, you were looking at someone's savings account and you notice they're having their salary paid in there, and in a polite way you're sort of chatting to them about getting their salary put into, say, a bank card, a credit card, maybe if they're going on holiday, maybe if someone's picking up some traveller's checks. Back in the days, that was something that was happening a lot, the traveller's checks. Dealing with foreign currency was quite interesting as well. But you would strike up a conversation about, have you thought about having a credit card? Have you got one? Do you know that it can help you out? You've got travel insurance on it, you've got this on it. And you'd sell all the different benefits and perks. And obviously it was your job to make sure you knew all of the products like the back of your hand. Obviously things like mortgages and loans, financial advice, you would refer them to specific people. You would just give a summary. I can even remember we got accredited for being able to have, I don't think it was to sell houses, but we had some sort of accreditation for being able to have properties listed in one of the buildings that I worked in. I think when we moved to a new branch. But that was quite interesting to be able to do that. And the job was quite good. We managed to go to Rotherham. I worked in the Rotherham branch sometimes when they were short of staff. I worked obviously in the Leeds section for the call centre. I worked in Sheffield, as I've said. So it was quite interesting to be able to just transfer and move away from one particular job to another. The reason I mention this particular job in detail is because it had a real big impact on my community in a very, very big way, which I didn't realise until afterwards, because suddenly we started getting all these visitors coming to our family house. So obviously for my family, they were very, very proud about the fact that I had got this job when I was earning and I was saving, and I was putting quite a lot of money aside, but it also gave me financial freedom to be able to, purchase my own car at the age of obviously 18. And it made me financially independent in a lot of ways because I was saving quite a lot of money at the side, but also I paid my tuition fees for university. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was still a lot in those days. And also I was able to pay for my university books, which, believe me, for English were very, very expensive, very expensive. And a lot of the books you couldn't get in the library or you couldn't purchase that easily. So it was difficult trying to access some of those things. So being able to pay for it out of my salary was quite handy. And also I had a little brother, I had siblings, I would get them little treats, especially my brother. I would spoil my brother quite a lot. I would get him clothes and little toys and things like that. I was always treating him. He was obsessed with Teletubbies. So I remember going in a shop and getting him a top and bottoms with Teletubbies on. Sorry, my brother, but I have to just little divulge that one. Now, in regards to the community, it was a great impact for me working there. As I said, slowly my confidence got better. Slowly I was able to get leads, that's what we called them. When, for example, somebody wanted a mortgage or a loan, my confidence got better, my self-esteem got better. And it was also quite hard, like working amongst other colleagues who didn't quite understand, like when it was Ramadan and things like that, that I needed to open my fast at specific times and I couldn't have the set break that I was told to take. So it was quite good in a way that I was changing, or I was educating, I guess, other people around me about my religion and my faith at that time. That was quite revolutionary. But what was nice also, and this is the memorable thing that I have, is that one of our relatives, as we called him, he wasn't our actual biological relative, but he was our adopted granddad. And he was somebody who lived opposite myself and my family when I was growing up in an area called Winkerbank. And that was the first house that we lived in. It was where I was born. And this family were the only other family like us that lived opposite on that street. The other families were white. My dad's brother lived right at the top of one street. So he was within that area, but lived, you know, at the top of the road. And then at the side of this particular gentleman's house was the mosque that everybody would go to, the mosque that everybody still goes to now in Sheffield, in that area. And this grandfather, bless him, may he rest in peace, but I remember him coming into the branch. He rarely went to Meadowhall. In fact, he hated it. And when he found out that I had this job, he came to visit me. And I must admit, it was a very, very, very proud moment for me and in my life. And I think at that point it hit me what I had done, because I didn't realize I was busy serving customers, I was busy doing my job, and he was stood there, and I could see that somebody was stood there like in the queue, because we had like a line, and I was just so busy doing my job I hadn't noticed. And then all of a sudden he spoke up, and I'll interpret this in a minute. But he just looked at me, and it sternly, and he had this like beard, and he would wear the little red and white, like the shtasha over his head. He was a cute, like grandfather figure. Very, very, very kind man, very lovely man, honestly. And they don't make them like that anymore. But this is what he said. He was like, Bache, mashallah, mashallah, bache. Mungo dera kana khushal uchita dil takar ke. Mungadera khushalu, mashallah, mashallah, subhanallah, subhanallah, the dear khashtakar ke, the dear khajinaye, the dear khabandaye. And he said this in the whole like branch. Obviously, this language Pashto, nobody knows if he's shouting, swearing, saying bad words. But I can assure you, he was actually being a gentleman. He was actually being very kind. He was just saying to me, to summarize, he said, you know, you are doing a fantastic job, young lady. You are doing a really good job for the community and for the people around you. I'm very proud of you. You know, may God praise you. May God keep you safe. And you know, he was just repeating that several times. And to have somebody like him come into the branch when I was working and say that during his day, especially when I know he hates malls, was a big thing. And what I noticed in the time that I was there, obviously word spread, because even my dad's brother didn't know that I had a job there, and they'd come into the branch one day and didn't realize I was working there. And they got the shock of their lives, obviously. And you're not supposed to serve your family, so they went to somebody else. But I remember them coming and visiting me at home. And I know this is going to sound rude, but it is funny. My uncle is very, very sly, very cheeky, very, what can I call it? Not to sound rude, but he was very direct sometimes and very, very nosy, wanted to know people's business. And obviously he was shocked that I had got this job and nobody told him. Well, I didn't know until that particular day I rocked up and I had a job there. And we had this custom, which a lot of Arab families, Pakistani, Indian families, I think a lot of cultures have something similar, but we like serve fruit, we serve dates, and then we serve the tea or the water and the biscuits and whatever it is that you're serving for your family at that time. And my uncle just stopped his conversation, looked at me and said, so then, how much are you getting then per hour? And I just went quiet. I could see my dad feeling really uncomfortable with this question, and my mum also feeling quite comfortable with this question. And normally we're told like not to speak to your elders, but on this particular occasion, you know, I did. I got a telling off for it after, trust me, I got a real telling off for it. But my response was, well, uncle, I'm the same as you, I'm the manager. Now, my uncle was one of these people that would brag, and he wasn't really a manager. He would probably be an assistant, or he would be a customer service assistant, but he would tell everybody, oh yeah, I'm the manager of this, and I'm the manager of that, and I'm the manager. He was actually a mechanic. And yes, he probably had a lot of responsibility, but he liked to brag about himself. And I think a lot of that is ego in that, you know, sort of time frame or the way he was. Anyway, when I told that to him, he just looked at me and that shut him up. So that was my answer. I was the manager. Anyway, I digress. So during my time at that branch, slowly what we started to notice, well, I certainly start to notice, is the number of people coming into the branch that were ethnic minority, especially from the Pakistani community and especially from the Indian community, my family, you know, the Pathans, whoever they were coming in. And I also noticed more and more black customers as well, which hadn't been there in the time that I had been working. You know, for a couple of weeks, I didn't see any specific people coming in. And Sheffield Meadowhall has so many different people coming in because you've got like a train station at the side. So you do get people from Manchester, from Liverpool, people come for a day out from different places, Doncaster. They do come from different areas. But I think word had spread that, oh my God, there's one of us in that branch. And what was interesting was that they wouldn't necessarily go to the other members of staff, that some of them would purposefully come to me, because whether I could explain something in their language, or whether I could say something or dictate something, or they just felt comfortable. And that was quite a nice thing to see. That was really nice to see that I was changing like viewpoints and I was changing history, because like I said, I was 18 years old, I was ethnic minority, I was female. Also, unfortunately for me, I guess, I had a disability. I was ticking all the boxes that you would say under Equality Act. Because of my hip, my problems with my hip, I was ticking quite a lot, actually, of ethnic minority boxes, so to speak. So I guess, in hindsight, although the workplace probably didn't know it, they were doing quite a lot for the community. Now, eventually we moved to another branch, which was a system where we did have cash. Now, it took a long time actually to understand the dynamics of that one. We had more training on that, and I must admit that was hard. We were looking after a fixed amount of cash that we would have. Obviously, you would get a surplus amount, and I can remember sometimes there was one particular manager, she just wasn't patient at all, and she would just make your life hell. And because of the fact you'd feel her behind you, you'd feel this tension behind you, you would make cash errors. And unfortunately, a lot of the times I did. She wasn't very patient, she wasn't very understanding, but sometimes you shared your till with somebody else, because somebody would be taking over you at lunchtime or something like that. So sometimes there were mistakes made. It could be that you've keyed in a check figure and you've got one digit wrong or something like that, and you would have to correct it before you went home. So sometimes people would get annoyed, and I'm being honest and saying, yeah, the majority of the time that was me. And a lot of the time I was nervous. I felt quite a lot of pressure sometimes doing all these different things whilst working with all this cash, and being aware that, you know, anytime somebody could come in and rob the bank. There's that feeling as well at the back of your head. Now, the benefits of working for that branch were that it helped my confidence, it helped my self-esteem, it helped me learn how to persuade and to be charming, I guess, the person that I've become now. And it helped me find my voice. It also funded my university, like I said, but also when I became a teacher, I was working for Halifax at the call centre in Leeds. I did that for over a year. Now, I switched from working in the branch to basically working on lost and stolen, the switch transactions, fraud accounts. Sometimes you got the opportunity to go and work on something called the bridge. The bridge is basically the hub of where things go on, and it's like the key people are there, the key managers, I guess, or the key people or team leaders or team workers were there. And what was good for me was I was coming in with this knowledge of working in a branch. So sometimes some of my colleagues wouldn't know some things, and I'd say, oh yeah, you can go do this, this, this in the branch and do this, this, this. So it was good that I was ahead in that game. One of the fantastic things about working for that branch was that I was able to put quite a lot of money aside as a deposit, and when I hit 23, I was able to buy my first home. Being a female at that time, 23, ethnic minority, buying a home by yourself was a huge achievement, also, obviously, at that time, you're able to get different rates, different views of accounts that you need for your house purchase. So that side of it was brilliant. And it helped me gain stability in my life. It helped me in the future with finances and being more sensible. Sometimes maybe not also as much as sensible as I'd like to be, because life happens, things happen. But it did give me a lot of financial stability to be able to purchase that first house and to then gradually furnish it and gradually make it how I want to. And also, you know, when I was teaching, moving on to teaching, I was able to decorate it and put it in my style. But going back to the job at Halifax, yeah, there were proud moments, and it was beautiful reflecting back how that job helped me so much in many, many different ways that I didn't realise. Years later, when I worked for the union, I became a treasurer for the union, and that financial side has helped me be able to sign checks, be able to look at the treasurer's report and do various things like that from that accounting side. I mean, I still love looking at the kids' faces when they talk to me about jobs and stuff like that in the classroom. And I said, oh yeah, I worked in a bank, and they were like, did you take any of the money, miss? Did you take? No, you don't steal a penny, let alone a pound. You know, you're saying about integrity. And I said to them, I would be looking after the safe keys, and I would be looking after this amount of money in the safe. Like, you know, sometimes it'd be this amount or this amount, and they'd be like, oh my God, miss, did you ever take any? Did you put any in your trousers or take them up? And you're like, no. You know what kids are like. Kids like asking lots of questions like that. But it was a fascinating job, an interesting job, a job that set me up for life. And I'm very, very grateful for it. So thank you very much, Halifax, because you helped me so much with giving me that opportunity and allowing me to help my community and allowing me to help the people around me change their perspectives, not only about religion and culture and traditions, but also about helping our community access their accounts. Sometimes they don't always understand specific things. They need someone else to explain it to them. So thank you very much, Halifax, for helping me do that.